We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, July 7th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Im Sang-hyuk.
Hey, happy Monday.
Happy Monday, and Kang Moon-ju's also with us.
Good morning.
And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So it's Monday, and as we kick off a new week, we're diving into a topic that feels especially timely as many of us head back into the work week routine. Today, we're looking at potential changes to our working conditions under the new administration. So let's break down some of the broad labor policy reforms the government is planning. Sang-hyuk, can you give us a rundown of some of the key changes that are currently on the table?
Yeah, so the new Lee Jae-myung administration is trying to overhaul the overall labor policies under the value of respect for labor. Now, the key policy proposals include implementing a 4.5-day work week, extending the legal retirement age to 65, and introducing the so-called Yellow Envelope Act. Now, the government aims to significantly strengthen workers' rights and update work standards to reflect the current trend while simultaneously reinforcing legal and institutional safety nets. And so let me explain about the 4.5-day work week, which is an emblem of President Lee's labor reform. Now here, as you can see from its name, the 4.5-day work week is reducing working hours from the previous 5-day work week system. And the interesting part here is that there will be no reduction in salary, which sounds, oh, nice. So the Lee administration is planning to let the companies run this new system based on their respective working conditions, so they can freely select the days for 4.5 work days or working 35 hours a week flexibly or 4-day work policy biweekly. Now, the government stresses this new working hour system will boost the work-life balance of Koreans, having a spillover effect to our society and economy.
So you've mentioned several of the key labor reforms, and one that really caught public attention during President Lee Jae-myung's campaign was his pledge to introduce a 4.5-day work week. So let's start with that. So Moon-ju, can you tell us more about how this works and how it currently stands?
Yeah, of course. So the current administration's labor policy is kicking off with the introduction of a 4.5-day work week, as just Sang-hyuk mentioned. As this was one of the President Lee's key campaign pledges, the government is now actively working to make it a reality. The plan involves reducing the legal maximum working hours from the current 52 hours per week to 48, along with cutting back on the allowable amount of overtime. So making this slightly simple. So now we have combination of normal working hours and overtime hours. So currently it's 40 plus 12. Making it 48 hours, there are two ways of this. So reducing the normal working hours or reducing the overtime working hours. So it's kind of balancing those two. So the government is trying to see which way works better. And so ultimately the goal is to create a work environment where people can work less but work more efficiently. So balancing this a better work-life balance over employees or employees, yeah. And in fact, several institutions in Gyeonggi province have already launched pilot programs for 4.5-day work week involving around 1,300 workers and 68 companies, including Gyeonggi Content Agency.
Right, so like you said, E's proposal starts by shifting from the standard 40-hour, 5-day work week to a 36-hour, 4.5-day schedule, cutting regular working hours, like you said, by 4 hours each week while keeping wages the same. And what's really notable here is that this policy isn't just about cutting hours, it's about fundamentally rethinking how we structure the work week to improve quality of life without reducing pay. And this is seen as like a transitional step towards a longer-term goal of moving to a full 4-day week. So Sang-hyuk, how do millennials and Gen Zs feel about the 4.5-day work week so far?
Well, right now they are definitely supporting this new labor policy. So why don't we look at the screen to find out more about the survey result. So a nationwide survey of Korean adult men and women found that 38% responded positively, and the reasons cited included improved work-life balance, enhanced job satisfaction and working conditions, increased efficiency and productivity, and expanded employment opportunities for young people. Now, it's estimated that the positive response rate would have been even higher if the survey had targeted only the MZ generation, as they tend to prioritize work-life balance. And in fact, 8 out of 10 MZ respondents expressed support for a 4-day work week. And in another survey, more than half of Generation Z participants said they would prefer a 4-day work week even if it meant a reduction in salary.
So it's clear that most young people are really on board with this, which makes sense, really. But as with any major shift, there must be some who are approaching with a bit more caution, right, Minju?
Yes, there are some growing concerns as well. In a recent survey, about 25% of respondents viewed the 4.5-day work week negatively. Their reasons included worries about reduced income or the burden of shorter working hours, potential drops in productivity and work continuity, fairness across different industries and job types, and last but not least, doubts about the policy's practicality and or whether the timing is right to impose this policy. There are also concerns from businesses about increased labor costs and added complexity of managing personnel under this new system. In fact, a group of 100 leading scholars in business and economics in South Korea identified reduced working hours as a policy most likely would impact negatively the competitiveness of the Korean industry. The main concern regarding this is that hourly productivity in the South Korea is already lagging behind that of the other OECD countries right now. So without a clear and effective strategy to boost this productivity, simply reducing working hours would pose a serious threat to the country's industrial competitiveness.
You did mention how this would impact Korean businesses, and especially this is a big concern for smaller companies who are worried that they won't be able to maintain productivity without hiring more staff or cutting orders, and that might cause deepened gaps between smaller companies and large companies. So I guess we'll have to keep an eye on what kind of incentives and supports will be provided. So with Korea now moving towards a 4.5-day work week, you might be wondering what that could actually look like in real life. So that's why we'll be speaking with a young office worker from the UAE, a country that's already put this system in place. And that conversation is coming up right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
We're joined today by Wasmia Al-Rashdi, an office worker from the UAE. Hi Wasmia, thanks so much for connecting with us today.
Hi, good morning, and my pleasure.
When did companies in the UAE begin adopting the 4.5-day work week? What led to this shift?
First of all, let me brief you about the previous working hour. We were working from Sunday till Thursday, 5 days a week. However, starting from 2022, the working days became from a Monday till Friday half day. And we are the first and the only Arab country which start this initiatives. And what led to that change is the international business and economy. Actually, we are losing one business day when we are having Friday as an off day. And with that change, now we are matching the global market. And as you know, time is money.
Okay, Wasmia, so it sounds that there should be some changes following the new policy of labor in your country. Then what are the real-life benefits and challenges that workers and companies are experiencing with this new arrangement?
Of course, everything have positive and negative side. While having 4.5 working days that suits the international companies, it's a challenge for the local businesses and companies due to reduced working hours, which impact actually the productivity. That's for the company. But for workers, from the positive side, we are having a longer weekend actually. and that give the workers life balance, you can say. Also, I noticed in my company on Friday, the employees are much happier than the other days. From the negative side, actually, we miss the Friday vibes. As Muslim, Friday is the you can say a spiritual day, a day of peace and connection and reflection. We used to live it with you can say calmness from morning, and the men used to prepare for the Friday prayers. And I noticed that my family, when they were like preparing and they are wearing beautiful clothes before going to Friday prayers, I miss this you can say Friday routines, and that the negative, or you can say the only negative side for the workers.
Yeah, I see. For our last question for you today is, in your opinion, what would an ideal work hour arrangements look like one that really works for both companies and employees? In my opinion, and I'm talking from emotional side more than economic side, I wish to have Friday as an off day back again, and that's I want to live the Friday routine with my family again, the spiritual of Friday again, and I want the next generation to grow up feeling the beauty and the spiritual of Friday and live it the way we did once.
Thank you so much for sharing like a real insight of the importance of what Friday is to office workers everywhere. So thank you for coming and joining us today.
Thank you.
So we just heard from an office worker from the UAE about her experience with the 4.5-day work week. So now let's turn attention to the other labor reforms currently under discussion. Sang-hyuk, can you walk us through what the yellow envelope bill is and what challenges it is currently facing right now?
Well, it's actually a controversial topic right now. So basically, this yellow envelope bill is a reform measure aimed at restructuring labor management relations, and it's also expected to move forward as well. Now, this law seeks to strengthen the legal responsibilities of the main contractor companies and their obligations to ensure employment stability. So in a nutshell, it puts a brake on the main contractors' exploitation of subcontractors while empowering union members by giving more collective bargaining power.
And you mentioned bargaining power, and one key advantage of the bill is that reducing workers' fear of lawsuits actually strengthens their bargaining power, like you just mentioned,
right,
which would potentially lead to better deals without frequent strikes.
Right. So it's basically balancing out the power structure between the employers and employees. But this system puts a burden on businesses' operation. So there are like several challenges to its practical implementation.
And I think that can both happen both in Korea and also globally. So if this bill passes, like it could become much harder for companies to file damages lawsuits against striking workers, which means they would have to absorb all those losses related to strikes. And also, you mentioned like different like impact that can have, and that also includes overseas investment as well. For example, when Hyundai announced a major U.S. investment around 2021, the workers actually pushed back, labor union pushed back, saying that Hyundai should be prioritizing domestic companies. So it really does, like you said, have an impact on businesses as well.
Yeah, so to some extent, it might degrade the Korea's economy overall. And by the way, the name was actually inspired by public fundraising efforts using yellow envelopes, and it was to help workers pay excessive damages imposed after strikes. And in addition, the government is also pushing to ban the fixed sum wage system, and that is the so-called comprehensive wage system. Now, it is giving a fixed monthly salary for overtime, night shift, and holiday work allowances rather than being calculated separately based on actual hours worked. And this has been considered to hold the potential which the employer could force the workers to work over their given time without giving a reasonable amount of wage in return.
I'm glad you also mentioned the comprehensive wage system because we talked about the 4.5 work week, and labor groups are calling for reforms for both of them at the same time because the comprehensive wage system can undermine the 4.5 work week by allowing companies to work overtime without a proper compensation. So that's also a really good point that we should be talking about. And another reform that's been getting a lot of attention, especially in the context of Korea's aging society, is the extension of the retirement age. So Moonju, can you tell us more about this one?
Yes, of course. So legislation to extend the retirement age is also gaining the momentum. As of 2023, the employment rate among older adults has reached nearly 70%, making retirement age extension a practical measure in an increasingly aged society these days. However, many emphasize a need for a carefully balanced approach, one that considers both the employment prospects of younger generations and the long-term sustainability of businesses. What this means is if the retirement age is extended without first achieving the right balance, companies may face unintended consequences such as reduced hiring opportunities for young generations and a potential decline in overall organizational productivity.
Right, so this does really sound like a delicate balancing act. Sang-Hyuk, what are the other reforms that workers want carried out?
Yeah, so if you look at a survey conducted among the office workers, it was found that the most urgent issue the current administration needs to address is the problem of non-standard workers, that is, irregular employment system. So in fact, one expert noted that while passing the Yellow Envelope Act is important, it is equally crucial to pay attention to the challenges faced by non-standard workers who remain outside the safety net of the current existing labor laws.
So what you said really highlights how these labor reforms really need to be more inclusive. It's not just about protecting unionized or full-time workers. Non-standard workers like freelancers should also be part of this. It should be part of this broader policy discussions. Do you have anything to add to this, Minju?
Yeah, another pressing issue lies in the challenges facing young workers, namely a shortage of quality jobs, low wages, long working hours, and a serious concerns around workplace safety, including major industrial accidents. The situation is particularly dire for the so-called resting youth, a growing group of young people who are neither employed nor in education or training. We call this 쉬는 청년 in Korean. Given the scale of the problem, meaningful change is becoming increasingly urgent.
So to wrap up our discussion today, you mentioned that you are a freelancer. So what kind of efforts do you want to see the government do?
So definitely implementing 4.5 work week will have positive impact to our society and economy because it will reduce the burden of labor and ensure more work-life balance, and this will also boost the domestic economy since people will consume more on their off days. And it will eventually raise the birth rate as well, with more time given to raise and take care of kids. But as you just said, Sujin, regardless of labor reform, there will be a certain labor group left out from these benefits. And those are non-standard workers like part-time workers, seasonal workers, or freelancers. And I hope the government also offers more support for these groups. So reducing working hours would be unrealistic for freelancers. So maybe the government could build stronger protection measures, such as occupational safety nets, more benefits in tax deduction, or ensuring solid bargaining power.
That's a really important point. Labor reforms should really evolve to reflect the diversity of the workforce today. So what about you, Moonju?
I do completely agree with what Sang-Hyuk said. More MZ generation are currently working as freelancers or even on a short-term contracts. And in fact, freelancers today are often seen as operating in a kind of legal gray area in terms of the labor protections. So given this reality, it would be beneficial to explore alternative frameworks or policies that better reflect and support these evolving work issues for freelancers.
So maybe the dream of leaving early on a Friday isn't so far off, but as we've seen, real change takes more than just clocking out a few hours early. It's about making work better for everyone. So picking up on what both of you said, as Korea pushes ahead with labor reforms, it's clear these changes need to reflect the realities of today's workforce, which includes freelancers and non-standard workers. So this brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But NewsGen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Big thanks to Sang-hyuk.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And Minju.
My pleasure.
And to all our viewers, thanks for watching, and we hope you have the best day. We are
News Generation.